Association has hosted candidate forums because we believe that it's important that if people want to represent us, that we ought to have a chance to talk with them before they get elected. We will not make endorsements, but we think it's important for our folks to have that direct interaction with people. The format tonight is I'm going to call on each of the four candidates one at a time to have an opening 4-minute statement. Then we'll go into a round of questions with a 1-minute answer on each of those, and then a 2-minute close at the end. My husband Jonathan will be keeping the time for us on that. We're going to
yeah, just a reminder to everyone to stay on mute and that this is being recorded.
Great. We have 2 candidates from the 2nd district and 2 candidates from the 3rd district because boundaries of the Ginter Park Residents Association encompass part of both districts. I'll be rotating who I call on first, try to keep that equitable. And Scott, I'd like for you to start with your 4-minute statement, if you would, please.
Gladly. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. It's really neat to be part of a 70-year tradition. I did not realize that last time I ran, but I'm Scott Barlow. I represent the 2nd district on the school board and have for the past 4 years. It's been just an absolute honor and privilege to represent the families in my district. And I would, of course, be very thankful for the opportunity to continue my advocacy. In my day job, I am in-house counsel for a higher education best practices research, technology, and marketing firm called EAB. We've got over 600 employees in the Richmond area, so you may have heard of us. But I'm of course here to talk about why I'm running, and I think to really address that, getting an idea of what drove me towards an interest in public education policy in the first place was, and that was largely because I come from a family of teachers. My mother, 2 aunts, uncle, grandmother, and great-grandmother were all public school teachers. So it's safe to say that around the dinner table at night, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about public education. We were talking about the teacher experience. We were talking about support for students. And when I started getting a little older, I had the opportunity to start helping out in my mother's classroom in the Atlanta area. And at the time, I was going to suburban middle and high school, and I was helping out in my mother's classroom in Atlanta. And it was apparent to me from a young age that there are significant disparities in our public education system. And I think that a lot of those disparities are rooted in systemic issues, systemic racism, chronic underfunding of our urban public education districts. And you know, it really struck me from a young age. So when I moved to Richmond, I was looking for ways to get involved in the community. I felt head over heels for Richmond very early on. But after getting involved in some political activities with the Democratic Party, I started seeing a lot more momentum around funding advocacy. And I ended up getting involved with the Support Our Schools movement in particular, going to council meetings to speak about funding our public education system, and going to school board meetings to sort of see what was going on. And eventually I started getting some encouragement to run for school board in 2016. So of course I gave it a go. In the past 4 years, I'm proud of a lot of what we've accomplished, but I still think we've got a lot of work to do. I will say that I am thankful that we've had the opportunity to increase teacher pay every year of the past 4 years. I've been proud to continue to advocate for the resources that I think our school district needs. I think there's been an increased focus on equity and equitable distribution of resources in our schools, but I know that we've got a lot of work to do there. And I'm in particular proud of some more recent accomplishments, you know, construction of new schools. That's great, but I know that we've got a lot of advocacy to go on our school facilities issues. And, you know, with these last few seconds, I'll say, when giving thought to running for election this year, what really inspired me and drove me to continue to want to serve in this capacity, I think, is the uncertainties that we're facing as a community and the need that we have for consistent, steady.
That's
Oh,
it.
gotcha. Sorry.
Time's up. Okay, Mariah, unmute yourself. Julianne, can you? Thank you.
Good evening. Now,
Good evening.
first of all, I'd like to say thank you all for inviting me, Northside Association. I am Mariah White, and I am invested in Richmond Public Schools because I have two boys who attend Richmond Public Schools. And right now, both of them attend a 3rd district school. So it gives me honor to be on this call today. Not only does it give me honor to be on this call because I came from Northside. I lived on Woodrow Avenue for half of my life. So I do quite well know both districts. I know Northside, and I started in 2nd district many, many years ago on Jackson Street. And I also went to
Hey, Mariah.
Mariah, we can't
and a
hear you.
class. Hello?
Mariah, I
This
think
one,
your mic is going in and out. If you,
I don't know why that is
there we
happening.
go. You're good now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, I'm going back to where I was. I was born in Richmond and a product of Richmond Public Schools. I spent the last 12 years volunteering with community in schools as a mentor and a classroom parent. I decided to become a candidate for Richmond Public Schools because my children went to Carver, my oldest for 4 years. And within the last 4 years, Carver Elementary did not have the right resources for the students. I'm there every Friday, so I get to see it firsthand. It failed to meet the students' basic physical and emotional needs for the last 4 years. There are so many things that the children at George Washington Carver doesn't have, and the children at Fox Elementary does have. So when we talk about equity, I am really for the equity in 2nd district. I am also a United States Army officer. I retired with 26 years, and I am confident that every child has the right in Richmond Public Schools to be afforded the right and excellent education, regardless of their background, economic status, or where they live. So the reason why I'm running, and some of you may know me from the last time, because I did run 4 years ago. I ran 4 years prior to that, and I will continue to run every 4 years until the Richmond Public Schools can do better. We need better in Richmond Public Schools. My son now goes to Henderson in the STEM program, and I went over there the other day, and that school really needs fixing up. I went to also Henderson Middle School in the 1970s. So there is a complete difference in schools as I see. As I was saying, Carver need resources. And within the last 4 years, the building had mold. The kids had to stay in the building for a whole year. With mold, the kids had no water fountain for almost 2 years. The kids didn't have toilet paper, did not have hand soap or hand cloths. These things are basic necessities. There is no reason why a child shouldn't have the basic necessities in school. And that's why I'm running, because I know I have invested interest for quite a while. My youngest is in 3rd grade, and I plan to make sure that they have what other.
Thank you. Your time's up.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we're going to call on Sabrina Gross from the 3rd district.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sabrina Gross. I live in the 3rd District. I'm currently the PTA president at Barack Obama Elementary. Can you guys hear me? I feel like I'm not loud enough.
You're fine.
Okay. I'm the PTA president at Barack Obama Elementary, where my daughter attends. She is 6 years old. I just want to start saying that, education is my passion. I have always worked towards having a career and making a change in education. I started my career at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts, where I got a bachelor's degree in psychology and a minor in education. I completed the teacher certification program in high school social studies, and then I went on to teach. Once I started teaching, I realized that, the way that I really wanted to make a change with the students who needed me the most was really working with them directly. So I started to work in mental health and children's services in the school directly so that I could provide them more supports beyond just education, but emotional support as well. And I really realized that, wow, these kids, you know how I can really make a huge change? Through policy. And so I went on to law school. So I went to law school in Cleveland Marshall College of Law, graduate of Tim Russert, if you remember from Meet the Press. He actually ended up passing away while I was there at Cleveland Marshall College of Law. And I went on to do that. And so now I currently work at the Virginia Department of Education. I work in special education. I do special education compliance. I'm the coordinator of complaints there. And I get an opportunity every day to speak with parents and to address their concerns and to provide schools with support to make sure that they are giving our most neediest and vulnerable students what they need. And so I decided to go ahead and run for school board because I realized that Richmond City needed someone that they could, the parents here needed someone that they could trust and build relationships with. Last year during the rezoning, I really tried to get parents to come on out and really, express their concerns to parents there at Obama. And a lot of them just kind of felt like, hey, this decision's already made for us. And that spoke to me that, they still did not necessarily have the full trust in the schools, and building trust starts with building relationships. And so that's what my platform is pretty much on. I mean, absolutely, I believe in equity, but the biggest thing right now is just building up those relationships with folks so that they trust what we're doing, and they trust that we are supporting their needs and the needs of their biggest assets, which is their children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'd like to hear from Kenya Gibson. Can you unmute her, Julianne?
Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hello, my name is Kenya Gibson, and I too am a parent of 2. I sit now on the board. Unlike Scott, I ran in a special election in 2017. So I've now been on the board for 2 years and 9 or 10 months. But it's been action-packed for sure. As I've been on the board, I've served on our finance committee since joining the board, and I served as chair of our state legislative committee, which is the committee where we work on formalizing our positions as a board for the upcoming General Assembly session. I ran for the board because I believe that our schools can thrive when our community is really empowered to participate in governance. Before running, I stood with teachers and parents to fight for teacher salary decompression and funding in general. And that was a really empowering experience for me. It was really the first time I had gotten as engaged in local politics, and so showing up at city council meetings and speaking, as nervous as I was, speaking at school board meetings and having my kids with me, it was just a really empowering experience, and even more so because we won. And those same teachers and parents stood with me when I ran for this seat, and we won. Since joining the board, we won the assurance that folks coming to speak at public comment wouldn't be told that the line was too long and that they had to sit down. We won having our meetings live streamed so families could watch at home. We've seen participation now of our streaming meetings. I believe our last meeting, there were like 9,000 views, which is really a statement and participating in the process. We won the prioritization of teacher retention on our strategic plan, because I believe very strongly that our kids are best served by those teachers who are experienced and have been there teaching as a profession. We won the construction of 3 new schools. We won enhanced teacher free speech. We won raises for our teachers and custodians and our instructional aides. And best of all, I think we beat powerful corporate interests who aim to divert hundreds of millions in future tax dollars from our schools to build a coliseum. It has been an incredible honor to get to know the parents and educators here in the 3rd District. The notion that our parents don't care is absolutely false. They are present and they are strong, and I am so incredibly proud to serve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this next section, I will be asking questions. You'll each have 1 minute to respond to that. The timekeeper will continue to be active. If people don't have children or grandchildren in Richmond Public Schools, why should they care about the school board election? We'll start with Mariah.
Right.
Right.
I unmuted. Thank you. Well, the first reason why, in my district, which is the 2nd District, there are a lot of people who do not have children. But our children affects everyone. It affects their tax base, their property, and it affects our community. We have to ensure that our next generation is the generation that will continue our legacies and continue our tax bases. So regardless, whether you have children or not, I didn't have children 4 years ago when I ran, but within the 4 years of that time, I adopted 2 little boys. So whether you have children or not children, or whether you have children or not children, your interest of your focus of the community that you live in could affect someone else's child, grandchild, niece.
Thank you, Mariah. Okay, Sabrina, got a minute.
I think that's an excellent question. I think we end up a lot of times kind of being like really focused on what we've got going on. But the reality of it is that, hey, we live in a, in a democracy. And in order to keep that democracy going, we've got to have a highly educated populace. The more educated the populace, the better our democracy. And the way that happens is providing excellent education for our children. And so, in order for us to continue to have that stability and the services that we provide to folks who are on Social Security or receive other kind of services, we need to have that educated populace. And so that starts with our children and making sure that they are receiving a top-notch education. And so that's why you got to take it seriously. You've got to vote. And on top of it too, if you have folks who are educated, they're going to be giving back. They're going to provide supports to everyone. And that's going to benefit everybody in the community. So that's why I think that, yeah, school board definitely matters to you, whether or not you have children.
Thank you. Kenya, got a minute.
Yes. Well, I think that definitely what's been stated about, gosh, who doesn't care about the kids in our city? Hopefully everyone. But I think another important factor is the fact that, look, the school system takes a very large portion of our city budget. And so I believe that everyone who pays taxes would certainly care about how those dollars are used. And I think too that, I would like to see our local elections become about more than popularity contests, but really, being able to identify the folks that appreciate the importance of independent voices. And school boards have that opportunity too. The last point I will make is it was the school board who was left to determine, how to proceed with opening the schools. And the point that I made in making that vote was this really wasn't just about the health and safety of our students. It was about the entire community.
Okay, Scott, you've got a minute.
Thank you. Well, I think this is an extremely important question, and to be completely upfront, I don't have kids in the schools, and I care very deeply about the success of our schools. And I think a lot of the reasons that we've heard so far, from the budgetary impacts to driving economic development in our community, hold true. But one thing that I think our community really needs to understand, and this has become more and more clear during this pandemic, is that our school system serves as one of the biggest social safety nets we have locally for our families. We are not just providing education, we're providing, at this point, well over 1 million meals. We're providing technology, we're providing opportunity. And I think we owe it as a community. It's the moral and ethical thing to do, to make sure that we are watching out for our students, that we're taking care of our kids, that we're making sure that they have safe environments. And I really do believe that this is the highest touch, most intimate form of government we have locally.
Thank you. Okay. Next question. If you could accomplish 3 things during your next 4-year term, what would be the most important accomplishments for you? We'll start with the 1 minute from Ms. Gross.
The first thing I would love to do is establish an equity committee, and that equity committee would support RPS in making decisions about making sure that our children of color have a strong education, and education is equal throughout. The second thing I would like to do is help support establish a mentoring program for our teachers, so that our strongest instructors can go ahead and support our new teachers, because we have a high teacher turnover. The last thing I think we really need to do, and I'd love to support, is to continue reading instruction, support reading instruction for good reading instruction for our children. RPS struggles with reading scores and reading achievements for our kids, and reading is the baseline for any level of education. And so we want to make sure that our kids are literate and have strong reading skills.
Thank you. Kenya, you're next.
Well, there are so many things. I think first, top of mind for me at the moment is special education. And in the 3 years that I've been on the board, we have yet to have even a single agenda item focused on special education, which I am still not understanding. You know, all of the transparency stuff is just, I think it's really important. There's no way that our community can become a part of the process if they don't know what's going on. I'd love to see a more robust check registry. I continue to push for more documentation as we are making every vote. And so I think the more that happens, the better we all are. And the third thing, well, you know, I mean, right now we've been having a discussion about equity, specifically around discipline. I would love for the board to revisit how we approach alternative education, our policy in terms of discipline, and how security guards and other personnel are implemented in the school. I would like to see more support rather than punishment.
Okay, Scott, your turn.
Sure. Well, I think to pick up on Ms. Gibson's point there, I do think that we've got a lot of work to do with student discipline. That is an issue that's really come to the forefront in the past months, and it should be on our radar, given the historic issues that we've had in our school district and that we see throughout the country. So I want to see revision of our disciplinary practices and our security practices. I also want to continue efforts on teacher retention. I'm proud that we got teacher retention included as one of the 10 goals in the strategic plan. But I think we need a lot more board and policy involvement and investment in order to ensure that we're actually driving towards that goal effectively. Because we know that having experienced teachers in the classroom and reducing turnover of our teachers not only makes economic sense, but it also ensures effective educational environment for our students. And one thing that I think that we haven't focused on enough that I'd really like us to engage in more discussions in the next term is bolstering our career technology offerings. I think we've got some incredible.
That's it. Thank you, Scott. Ms. White, your top 3 accomplishments.
My top 3 accomplishments will be equity resources for all students in the 2nd district. Also increase the graduation rate, which is now at 75.4, to provide focus on the disciplinary actions especially referrals, to also look at resources for special education. Sometimes there is forgotten, and whoever said that, and it should be that is inclusive and student-centered for our special education. Also would like to ensure that teachers receive incentives where they don't have to pull money out of their pockets to pay for things in their classrooms. We'll also like to bridge a gap, the gap that we have from two different sectors.
That's it. Thank you. Okay, next question. You all began to touch on this already. What is the best way to keep our schools safe? We know that being assaulted or threat of assault is the #1 reason that teachers not only leave RPS, it's one reason that they leave the field of teaching altogether. We want to be sure that our children are safe in terms of invasion by school shooters, but we also want to make sure that there is no violence going on by the students who are in the schools. And what is your opinion about the use of police officers in the buildings? This time we'll start with Kenya.
So, okay, 1 minute. So I think that ultimately the system that we have doesn't work. The incidents, the number of incidents and disciplinary issues are on the rise. And so I think that we should really all be alarmed by the reality of what's happening in our classrooms on a day-to-day basis. I think that I am disturbed by the fact that we're sending so many of our middle school students, special needs students, African-American students, that they're being arrested in the class. I don't think that that's helping anyone, certainly not the students. And so what I would like to see, I believe that we really need to transform the way that we approach discipline. I think that we still need people in the building to break up a fight. That, don't get me wrong, but I don't believe that those people need to have a badge and need to have a gun.
Scott?
Thank you. Well, I think this is an incredibly tough thing to address in 1 minute, but I think we really need to be focused on the root cause of the behaviors that are causing incidents that may require arrests and things of that nature. So we need to continue to provide wraparound services for our students. We need to have trauma-informed care practices for our students. We have a school district where tons of our students experience trauma every day at home, and they need supportive environments in the classroom. In order to do that, I think that we should be increasing the number of counselors that we have, increasing the number of social workers that we have. Of course, we need some level of security in our buildings to ensure that our students are safe, not only from fights in the buildings, but also from exterior threats that may occur. But I agree. I don't think that right now we can justify arresting hundreds of students over the next 4 years by not taking action. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing hundreds of our students arrested. And we have a responsibility to address that. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is by.
Okay. Thank you. Mariah, you have a minute.
I think the way that we need to address that is everyone needs to sit at the table. We need to iron out what roles and what policies the police officers should be taking. Police officers just don't at the school. Now, I'm from Richmond, so we had police officers at this time. I am encouraging that a safe environment for all, whether it's teachers, students, or support staff. So yes, first of all, we do need counselors, behavior support, social workers, and other staff to help our students, as well as some of the parents that comes into the schools. So I'm not against police officers not being in school, because sometimes they are needed. There is other ways that can be implemented. You can also have retired sheriffs, or you can have and bring them back on. They can wear plain clothes. When I went to Henderson, we had plain clothes police officers. They don't directly have to be in the school. They can be on the outside of the school.
That's it. Thank you. Sabrina?
Yeah, so I mean, starting off with the police officers in schools, they're not necessary. In Virginia, in general, it has moved towards a safe schools environment, and that has been spearheaded. And there's several positions available now for that. So we don't need police officers in our schools. How do we address discipline? Well, baseline. And I agree with Scott. You have to figure out where it's coming from, and how do you do that? Well, first of all, you have more wraparound services in the school, and you work close with community agencies, which is a big part of what my platform is, which is reaching out to parents, building those trusting relationships. Because if you have trusting relationships with parents, they're more likely to support the decisions of the school. They'll be more present, and they'll continue to work with the school to address the needs of the children. And then on top of that, you want to continue whatever partnerships the RPS has to support those wraparound services. And it may not necessarily even cost us anything additional if we are relying on some services that are already there to provide the supports for our students. And I agree, trauma-informed practices.
That's it. Thank you. Get back to that. Okay. Kenya.
I've already answered the question.
We did. So I got all four of you. Sorry. Okay. Next question. Many middle-class parents feel comfortable with their students attending schools like Holton and Obama, yet they leave the system after elementary school. What suggestions do you have about increasing the number of middle-class parents who stick around or start with us in the first place? And this time I think it would be starting with Sabrina if I didn't lose my place.
So I think baseline, I always like to first address this question with, you really want to focus on supporting the students that are actually in the school. And so the way that you do that is you just provide excellent instruction. So you need to continue to provide teacher supports. Like I said, you start with teaching, mentoring, you work on maintaining teachers because you want more seasoned teachers to provide those excellent supports. Continue working on strong reading skills for the students. And if they're getting good instruction, then people will have trust in RPS to continue educating their students. I think more in specialized programs like the STEM program at Henderson will encourage people to continue to send their kids to RPS because we'll have innovative opportunities for their kids to learn other places that they may not necessarily have that. And the other thing is too, we do have to continue to address how our buildings look. People are not going to send their kids to schools where they're not comfortable with them being safe. Right now, Obama and Holton are in very good shape. They have put a lot of effort. The administration have put a lot of effort and energy into making
Thank you. Kenya.
Yes. So, so we can't have a conversation about equity and then also say, what are our solutions to serve middle-class students fully? I mean, ultimately, everyone wants the same thing for their kids. They want to have schools that are where the caring staff, where their kids are going to be safe and where they're going to be challenged and enjoy where they spend the day. We need more resources to be able to meet the needs of all of our students, regardless of the income that they have. And I think that ultimately that's the focus. The focus is how can we deliver a quality education that meets the needs of all kids, and I do believe that that if we're doing it right, that all families will be excited to have their kids participate.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is an important question. And when I started on the board, I started running, I heard from a lot of families who were sharing concerns about our middle schools. And fortunately, a lot of those families and a lot of other families since have gone into our middle schools in particular, if you look at the success of a place like Benford Middle School, a lot more families have been interested in opting out there. And we should be looking at those past successes to figure out how we move forward. And so I think innovative programming, putting into specialty programs can go a long way. But it really does come down to providing a quality education for all of our students, and our parents need to be convinced that their students will receive a quality education in our building. And that it goes without saying that means that we need more resources. We need extremely effective teachers. And I think encouraging parental involvement at those schools goes a long way. When parents are involved in the PTA, when parents are involved in other groups surrounding their middle school and are providing that kind of support,
thank you.
Feel more buy-in. Yep.
Okay. Mariah?
Repeat the question one more time, please.
basically talking about how do you keep middle-class families from leaving the system after elementary school?
Oh, after elementary school. Well, I'm glad you asked that question because that's one of the questions that I had to go through. And what I was looking for is a community school. What I was looking for also was safe environment, qualified teachers, a good curriculum. And in order for us to do that, we need to take, like you said, Holton or one of the other schools, and we need to make a model of other schools from that model. Why can't other schools be the same as that school with the same programs, add programs into the school? That's why I put my child in the school that he goes to, specialty school, because it challenges him. The only thing that I have a problem with is that the school is not upkept, dilapidated building. But everything else I'm enjoying about the school. So as a parent of what you were talking about, middle.
Right. Thank you, Ms. White.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, I want you to start with this next round. This is a similar kind of attrition question. All across the country, public schools are losing students to homeschooling and to small private pods of several students being taught by a tutor, often a teacher coming from the public schools. After the COVID is over, how do we lure these students and teachers back to RPS?
Well, I think many families have the ability to put together pods. Many families have the ability to hire tutors, and many families have the ability to send their kids to private schools. But that's not the case for everyone. And a lot of our students really are not getting that level of service at home in this environment. So it's very important, first of all, to ensure that we're providing a safe environment for all of our students. It's important that our families understand that their kids will have a safe place to go, and that we're continuing to provide a high quality education. And if there's one thing I know from talking to dozens and dozens and dozens of families through this whole process, is that even the families with pods, they want their kids back in schools. They're not giving up on public schools. They're making do. They're doing what's best for their kids in this environment. But I know that we'll be able to get those families back, and we're going to come back stronger.
Good, thank you. Mariah?
What RPS needs to do is offer the same thing. RPS has good tutoring services, and I think they're just as good as the pods because my children have attended them during the summer school. They also, the families in Richmond Public Schools, they like Richmond Public Schools, but they want Richmond Public Schools to become better. They need Richmond Public Schools to introduce better plans. Families and children, they have their own, the children have their own little friends. They're not going to leave their friends, but this is the thing that we have to do in order to be safe, because we don't know the unknown, what date or what time this pandemic is going to end. But they will, if they see that the Richmond School Board has changed and it will become better, and the things that they didn't like is now better, they will be back at Richmond Public Schools.
Thank you. Sabrina?
Yeah, I think most people are potting up and sending their kids to private schools because that's what they have to do right now. And I think that when schools open back up, a lot of those people will return back to public school because, first of all, there's no cost there. However, if for some of those parents that we have those concerns, I think what we have to do is ensure that they feel that ensure them that their children will be safe at our schools. Continue to build a great sense of community, because that's something that the public school can really provide, is a sense of community. You're going to school, your neighbors. And so we want to make sure that we highlight that this is what we do at RPS. We have that community. And the other thing is we need to continue to work on I go back to this again, great instruction, okay? Making sure that people have trust that their kids are going to get a great education. And if we do those things, people will send their kids back to our schools.
Kenya?
So I'm a parent and I'm home, with my kids, feeling the challenges of virtual education. I am pushing very hard as a board member to address the truth, which is right now our schedule is I think unsustainable in terms of having kids schoolwork for these long hours. So I'm pushing very hard for that. I'm eager to find out what the numbers are. The administration has said that they would provide so we can get a sense of whether there's been a drop in attendance as a result of the pandemic. I do think, though, as others have said, that I think people are looking forward to getting their kids back in school. I would suspect that those folks that are going the route of pods, that is definitely a temporary Band-Aid. It may be harder to have parents come back who have gotten their kids established into a private school and gotten used to those and are able to afford it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next question. This is going in a different direction. It has been possible for several years for students taking a correct sequence of classes, both in their high school and the community college, to graduate from high school with also an associate's degree from a community college. However, very few of our students are still taking advantage of this real opportunity. How can we increase the number of folks who do take advantage of it? This time I'll start with Sabrina.
That goes into proper training for our guidance counselors. So, I mean, in order for students to take advantage of the opportunities, they have to know that the opportunity exists. And so if the students are taking advantage of it, then we have to kind of go into the fact that they don't have that information. And so that starts not at, senior year, that starts at freshman year. When they come in, they need to present them with this opportunity that you can get this associate's degree and earn that while you're in school. And what do you have to do that? You have to take, like you said, the proper sequence of classes, but also you have to maintain a certain GPA, and you have to just be fully engaged in school. And so I think that's what we have to do, because usually when people aren't taking advantage of an opportunity, it's because they're not getting all the information. And the other part of that too is, and I see this a lot even in special ed, is we have to make sure that our parents have that information. You can't rely on children to make these decisions for themselves. Send that information home to parents. When they have those initial days where the kids come in, open houses, let the parents know, hey, did you know that your child could, hey, let's save some money here, earn money, earn your earn the credits while you're in high school. So basically it's an information thing that we have.
Okay. Thank you. Kenya.
Yes, it's definitely a communication issue. I think that families, my sense is, people are very focused on the various specialty schools in the district and are just frankly unaware of the opportunity to take advantage of the program at JSARG. And I do think that there would be a lot of value in getting the word out about that. Same with our CTE program. This is a system that does require being in the know to I think, take advantage of it. And those are issues that I would like to see addressed.
Thank you. Scott?
Thank you. I think on top of ensuring that we are communicating with our parents, and on top of making sure that our guidance counselors are trained and are given support to help guide students in those directions, we should be more explicit about it as a goal for the district, and we should be more broadly speaking about these opportunities to all of our families. I'll tell you, I'm on the board of Code RVA and Maggie Walker. At Code RVA, we're very focused on helping students who are interested in getting associate's degrees move in that direction. And many of the students, the dramatic majority of students, do graduate with an associate's degree when they graduate from high school. And I think that's because the instruction has been built around it. I think it's because it's been communicated to the families. And I think it's because students are being given that value proposition. And I'll tell you, as someone who graduated from college within the past 15 years, I had my share of student loans, and I know that many of our kids will as well. So this
Okay.
is a big part of the
Thank
value.
you, Scott. Mariah?
Well, what I would say again, and it's going to be redundant, it is communication, and it is for parents as well as civic groups and other community stakeholders. It's not transferred. We also need relationship with these specialty schools, especially the ones in our community. We have, in second district, we have two. We have Maggie Walker, we have Co-RVA, and some students don't even know that they can attend either one of these special schools. I had to come and talk to a lady at the grocery store about co-RVA. She never even knew what co-RVA was. So we have to have, RPS got to start having open houses. We have civic groups, and at the civic groups, we don't talk about our specialty schools or pass it around. To say pass it around, we got an open house here at Maggie Walker. If anybody knows anyone, child wants to
Thank
take
you.
a chance to go.
That's it.
That's one of the things we need to do.
Okay. Next question is going to go in a different direction. How would you evaluate Superintendent Cameras' leadership so far? What do you feel are his most important achievements of his administration? What, if anything, do you think has been a significant failure? We'll start with Kenya on this one.
Well, let's see. So, I'm not able to like completely put it out there. He's an employee of the school board. And I would say that, if you come to school board meetings or watch them, you'll see that I'm a pretty outspoken person. And so, when there are things I agree with, I'm vocal about that. And when there are things I don't, I'm vocal about that too. I've expressed concern with, with some lack of transparency issues in terms of the budget not being made public when we made lots of cuts. But I was also very excited that our board became really active in state advocacy and lobbying for additional funding. I believe that ultimately, it's the community that will really bring change to the district. And so, that's where I focus. But like I said, if things come up, I put it out there.
Thank you. Scott, what's your perspective?
Thank you. So, Mr. Cameras and I have had our share of disagreements on policy issues from time to time. But what I'll say is that I do respect him. I think he's highly competent. I'm thankful that since he's joined the district that we've gone through the strategic planning process. I think that communication from the superintendent's office has improved dramatically in many respects. We get a lot of emails, a lot of videos online, things of that nature. And I think that's become more and more important, particularly in the COVID era. The superintendent and the board have undergone some significant challenges in trying to address our response to this pandemic. And I think that the superintendent has surely played a large role in leading us through this. And I'm very thankful for that. So I think that's really on our minds as a board and a community and a school district right now. And I think that's important. Now, the other thing I would want to speak to briefly is the importance of continuity.
Next, maybe you could get that in the next question. Mariah?
Can you repeat that question?
What do you think of Mr. Cameras' leadership? What are his successes and any failures?
Well, based on his leadership, due to this unforeseen COVID pandemic, I think that he has done quite well by ensuring that the children have all their needs and resources. He has, I'm not one of the ones who, I guess I would say, evaluates him because I'm not on the school board, but I can see that he respects and he cares for children. Even with my children, I have seen that that caring as a superintendent and as a father. But I can't say what he has done that that I would say that is he's working on everything, just like computers. They're as short as computers, but we know what we're going through right now. So I'm saying his leadership is pretty much runs
That's
everything.
great. Thank you, Sabrina.
So as I have to look at this as a perspective of a parent. So from my perspective as of a parent, I appreciate the fact that he has really reached out to the community. He really put a lot of effort and energy and resources in having family engagement and parent engagement. So I think that that's a wonderful thing. That's something that we need. I think that he has done a really good job. Him and the board have done a good job with COVID and the unforeseen circumstances. Or that program that they put together was magnificent. And in fact, a lot of people raved about it. I sent some of it to my friends out of state and showed it to them. I think, and these are some things that are just not necessarily necessarily his fault, but there are issues within RPS, and that is communication from the top down. And I think he's definitely trying to lead by example, but I still think that it is difficult for parents to get all the information necessary from the schools to make good decisions for their children. And so I think that that's something, that's an area that he can continue to work on. And then there's just always just some of these little
Okay, thank you. All right. The Department of Justice federally estimates that it cost a locality over $600,000 in terms of taxes that will not be paid and services that will be needed for every single dropout that we have. What kinds of efforts do you feel like we should take to reduce our dropout rate? Let's start with Scott.
Yeah, our dropout rate is still too high. That much is very clear. And there are costs for our community, but more importantly, there are costs for those students who don't have the same or don't have the opportunities that they should be given, or that they should be able to achieve after receiving a college diploma. So it's clear that improving academic achievement is going to be very important. And I think we really have to focus on our Latino community as well, making sure that they have the supports that they're receiving. If you look at the dropouts of our Latino population in RPS, they're way too high, and we've invested a lot of resources and as far as Spanish-speaking staff, for example, to help address that, but we've got a long way to go. So, first and foremost, it's improving academic opportunities for our students in the schools. That means investment in more programs and in our teachers, and then also, of course, making sure that they get quality counseling services.
Thank you. Kenya.
Well, I mean, I think that everything is intertwined. So I don't know that there's like one tactic that's going to get at the dropout rate. I think we need to look at special education. I think we need to look at transportation and make sure that our kids are able to get to school on time. We need to, I think, look at our attendance officers. I was disappointed that a prior budget cut all of our attendance officers that go out into the neighborhoods. I think those are critical positions. Having discipline. I mean, all of these things work in tandem. And when these things are working well, then we see all of the metrics go up. We see scores go up. We see graduation rates go up. We see teacher retention go up. And so I think that that the issues with dropouts, it's reflective of a myriad of supports that need to be enhanced within the district.
Thank you. Mariah?
What I see is that first of all, we need funds for this unique need of high need. It's not necessary. We need to know why they are dropping out. It doesn't have anything to do. Some students may not like the school. Some students may not like the curriculum. Some students just don't feel that they need to go to school. Some students have to work. Some students is the only breadwinner in that home. So we need to ensure that there is something that, whether they go to evening school or night school, or they do school on the computer, there are a lot of ways and things that we can do. But first of all, we need to know. And I'm going to say the guidance counselor needs to be more attentive to why these kids want to drop out. What can we do? They may not want to even graduate. We can put them in technical centers.
Okay, thank you. Sabrina.
So I know a large portion of our dropouts are students with disabilities. They tend to be, and even when they do graduate, we look at the engagement level and it's very low. So what that means is we need to provide a stronger special education services for those students, because if we do that, then they will continue to feel confident in their abilities and they will finish school. So that's number one. The second thing is, and I agree with Mariah here, I think some of those students, including our students with disabilities, we need to explain to them that let's focus on what your strengths are and let's provide those supports for those strengths. Not everybody is going to go on to a college level. We want to make sure that we're providing everybody with opportunities so that they can have good lives and strong lives. And so what that means is pointing them in the direction of CTE, pointing them in the direction of some of those other opportunities. And so if you do that, then they will not feel so stressed and feel like as though school is not for them. They will find value in completing their education.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
Yes, they're gonna do that.
I addressed this one.
Oh, you addressed this one. Okay. Did everybody speak on that one?
I'm happy to speak about something else.
Okay. Even before COVID, many of our students had been exposed to multiple traumas, and our system was beginning to try to provide some extra resources for that. We know that nationally, the suicide rate across all age groups, including school-age students, is going up. We also know that teachers have, by and large, been the primary reporter of child abuse when they had caring relationships with the children that share what was going on at home. Without that interaction, those reports have gone way down. What kinds of additional supports do you feel like we need to bring in for our students at this point? Scott?
Well, I think we really have to be focused on meeting the social and emotional needs of our students first and foremost when our students return to our schools. And to me, that means continued investment in counselors. We're fortunate that we have been able to increase the number of counselors over the past couple of years in our schools. And then we have focused on putting together some pilots. I joked one time to the superintendent, it seems like we've got enough pilots here to start a flight school. But the fact of the matter is that scaling up a quality trauma-informed care pilot or trauma-informed care program takes resources, and we need to continue to advocate for those resources to meet the social and emotional needs of our students. But this was one of the hardest things about closing our buildings with respect to COVID is that we know that our students and their families rely on a lot of these wraparound services that we provide. They rely on intervention from counselors. They rely on relationships with teachers and other adults in the building.
Right, thank you. Kenya?
Well, I think that the supports are needed, but I think now the place where I look for opportunity is really just in the structure of the overall day. To be frank, there's just not enough time to for these supports to be administered because the day is quite packed with so many requirements and that there isn't a lot of time. I mean, my kid right now, he's got like a half-hour lunch. Recess has been cut shorter and shorter and shorter. I believe that that we don't have bad kids, that we have problems that aren't solved. And the only way we can get to what those problems are is time and having those conversations. And frankly, the day is not structured to be able to have conversations when we're so focused on trying to cram to prepare for tests.
Raya?
Well, what I would say is similar to what Kenya had just said a minute, but what I would say is a day of a conversation. As I look at the school over here in the 2nd District, George Washington Carver, mentors, that you can see as role models. You can have behavior support staff, psychiatrists, justice system volunteers, to in-home counselors. And I have to agree with Kenya because it's a whole lot that you have to do in such a little day with a lot of hours. And maybe the mother or guardian can direct them to in-home counselors where they can get whatever they need there or resources. So those are the things I would say.
Okay. Sabrina?
Yeah, so I sit on a state and local advisory team to the Children's Services Act, and so because of that, there's a lot of state agencies, and so we just got to be a little bit careful with this idea that the reason why that children are having a lot of issues at home because teachers are not there to report. That's just not 100% accurate. But that being said, I would say that yes, we want to do more wraparound services, but wraparound services also include services in the home. So even if we don't have enough time in the school day to address those needs, remember our kids go home, and that's where they're experiencing some of this trauma. So we need to think about how we're going to be innovative and build community schools where those opportunities to receive those services can be provided in the in the school, not necessarily during the school day, and also case management opportunities so that they can work with parents to provide those services in the home and connect them with other services and service providers throughout the city.
Okay. Going in a different direction now. Back when our schools, almost all of them were being built, tornadoes in this part of—
8 o'clock, Norma, just announced that.
It's currently 8 o'clock. Back when most of our schools were being built, tornadoes in this part of Virginia were pretty rare, but with global warming, they have become more frequent. A tornado that came through Richmond a couple of years ago passed Holton Elementary by 2 blocks. Within the last decade, there have been 3 schools within 50 miles of Richmond that have been destroyed by tornadoes. And almost none of our current schools have rooms that will be a safe tornado shelter. What do you think we should do about this? Scott?
Boy, I think tornadoes are an important issue, but we have a lot of environmental issues in our schools. I mean, we are a school district with aging facilities throughout the city, and there are some very clear basic problems that we have with respect to the health and safety of our students and our teachers in many of these buildings, whether it be mold, whether it be tornado risk, whether it be leaks in our buildings. You know, Ms. White brought up Carver Elementary earlier, and that is a school. I mean, there isn't a quality gym that has negative health impacts for our kids. There were leaks and mold. So of course, you know, as we continue to construct new schools and we look at the layouts of our current schools, I would encourage the administration to watch out for tornado risks. But at the same time, we have such an overwhelming facilities issue in our school division that we've got a lot of work to do across the board.
Thank you. Kenya?
Yeah, I mean, you know, tornado shelter would be helpful, but you know, we're at a point where we don't have enough sinks in the building. So there are facility problems that go unsaid. I think that as the tornado, I remember that very keenly as a parent. And I think that was an opportunity really to, I think, fine tune the communication as a district. I found myself, I remember it was like I was about to drive home and I was stressed that I was gonna run late. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, why am I about to run home to get my kid in the middle of a tornado? And so communication should have gone out sooner to tell parents to stay in place and to stay safe and let them know that their kids would be safe, and ensuring that all of the kids were downstairs and as safe as they could be given the circumstances. So, so that's where I think the opportunity was there.
Okay, thank you. Mariah?
Well, what I would say for as far as a tornado, the community needs to form relationships within their districts. There are plenty of churches. And I know, for instance, there was a problem that they needed shelter, I think it was during the winter, and the Arthur Ashe, for the second district could have been revisited if it had heaters, if it had some heat in there, or if it had air conditioning. You also got, looking at facilities in the second district, you have college gyms. VCU has a big gym. You have to form relationships within your community, because there are stakeholders that would love to provide, especially shelter for your children.
Thank you. Sabrina?
So yeah, I mean, I think that just in general, we know our schools need more, need to be in better condition. And so when we're looking at that, we should consider whether or not creating fallout areas for tornadoes. Although Obama, where Amina, my daughter goes, is one of those schools. That being said, I have to say, like, I agree with Kenya on this, and me and her actually had this discussion when that happened with the tornado. I was in the same circumstances where I was driving to go get my daughter because the communication was simply not there about what we should do with our kids in that case. So what we want to do is have a procedure in place, which apparently at this point there is not, on how to what school staffs and administration should do when there is a tornado warning. And if we do that, then we won't have to worry about our schools necessarily having fallout shelters. We'll know when we should be at, what they should do, who we should communicate, when they should communicate, when parents should come pick up their kids, and that sort of thing, because that's really.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. Next question. One of the main reasons that our female students drop out of school is because of parenthood. Yet only one of our high schools teaches parenting classes and has a daycare center. What do you think we should do about this? Start with Kenny on this one.
I'm sorry, what is the beginning of the question about?
Oh, female students dropping out because they became parents.
Yes, you know, I don't have a top of mind answer for this. This isn't something that we've talked a lot about as a district. Would it be helpful to have daycare centers in the school? I would welcome to see what the statistics were and to get a sense. Frankly, I feel somewhat, you know, I think it's an excellent question, and it's something that we should be talking about at the district. And I'd like to see what the information is to be able to see how we could address it.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see more information related to dropout rates in RPS for students who have children. I know that this is an issue that we see throughout the country, so it wouldn't surprise me that that is a significant contributor. So I think anything that we can do to help provide support to our students would go a long way. But you know, I'm also cognizant of the fact that we have significant challenges with staffing our facilities as it is, with providing enough support for our students in day-to-day learning. So I would love to dig into it further and to have a better idea of what it would look like to provide more daycare services for our students throughout the district. But I also think we need to be providing rigorous health and sexual education instruction to our students as well, and you know, do whatever we can to help prevent certain circumstances from creating these issues. But I do think it's an important issue to consider moving forward.
Thank you. Mariah.
I would like to see the data on how many students there are that are pregnant and actually going to school. But this has happened in the city of Richmond. There was a school, Baker School, where the parents were allowed to, the children were at the top and at the bottom. And it was in our district. And this is when they put the alternative school over here at the old grade school. So this has happened in the city of Richmond. But if we want to get into the 21st century, like other states do, you can have online classes where they actually can take a class to fulfill their obligations, or you could have evening school where you have the daycare, just like Richmond used to have upstairs, and have someone actually watch the children while the mother takes her class.
Thank you. Sabrina.
So the national average for pregnant moms is actually down. So teenage pregnancy is actually down. So I think the best way to do that, rather than for us to put our resources in providing daycares in the schools, would be, again, to go back to that whole community schools and provide case management. And if you provide case management, then you can assist pregnant teen girls with obtaining daycare subsidies and supports of that. And we can work with the city to provide and open that up to provide more daycare subsidies for those young ladies who do have children and they need support in that way. In terms of daycare, they can apply for daycare subsidy. They would have somebody to hold their hand through that, and then they can go ahead and send their child to daycare and they can attend school.
Next question. A new elective class is being taught this fall, available to the senior high students, called The Real Richmond. What is your idea about how we can expand students' understanding of civics and government and civic participation? Scott?
I don't think that this could be a more timely time to have that discussion. It is extremely important for our students to have strong civic instruction. You know, when you hear data about how little many Americans know about the electoral process and who's running for office and what types of issues are going on. It's very important, and it's important that we teach our kids to be critical thinkers. They're going to be exposed to even more data sources, even more, I hate to use the term fake news, but social media influences and folks who may not have the best intentions when providing information to our students. So it's really important. Real Richmond, I'm very excited about. I talked to Reverend Campbell about it a few weeks ago to get his impressions of how it's developing. He's very excited about it. And there's also discussion about how we move that curriculum so it's accessible to in formats for our middle school and elementary students. And I'm really excited about that. I mean, there are field trip opportunities throughout the city of Richmond.
Thank you. Sabrina.
So I love social studies. I love civic engagement. That was part of what I went to undergrad for. So that being said, absolutely, like civic engagement is just so important. So that opportunity is there. I'm really excited about that opportunity. What we need to do is continue to strengthen those social studies and those civics classes. That's something that has been pared down throughout the years because we know that we really structure focus on reading and math, and we have taken away those time and resources from social studies and civics. So we want to put that back in there. We can get the thing about social studies is you can get so creative. You can help, and these kids are like totally into technology. You can get into working with them on podcasts. You can get with doing more, leaving out the building, doing volunteer work. But this is the capital of this whole state. They could be doing more having more volunteer opportunities with both the city and state workers. There's just so many.
Thanks, Sabrina. Mariah.
I'm excited about this. Of course, Real Richmond. I am a soldier, so of course, history. And I'm excited because it's going to diversity and inclusion. It will close that inclusion gap for all, so everyone know that they are accepted in Richmond, showing the past and the future. And I hope they put it on podcast and include it into their daily, teachers' daily lesson plans.
Thank you. Kenya?
So, I'm thrilled that this class is happening. I was the lone vote against renaming Jeb Stuart Barack Obama, and I gulped as I voted against the president who I think has been one of the best in our history. But I did that because I felt like we have such great local stories and that they deserve to be told. And I'm thrilled that that we are going to tell those stories. I was also very excited that that the administration and Mr. Cameras decided to close the district and allow students to be able to engage in General Assembly and those lobbying efforts. So I think that is all really important stuff to do. And and as a person that drags my kids everywhere, I'm thrilled to see more folks doing that.
Thank you. Now I want to open it up to questions from our audience if you have additional things. What I'd like you to do is to actually hold up your hands so we can take turns, and I hope to call on as many people as possible. Somebody interested in asking something we've not touched on? Okay. Are there any questions at all? Let me look at the other page.
There's a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
Kathy Howard asked, "It is so important for stability of leadership during times of crisis. How will you work to ensure that our current superintendent is supported now and beyond this time?"
Okay. Sabrina, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I completely agree. Just in general, we have a high turnover of superintendents, and that impacts cost, that impacts instruction, that impacts leadership at the school level. So we definitely want to make sure that we continue to support the superintendent to make sure that he's a good, solid leader. And the way that you do that is that you maintain good communication with him. You create good solid expectations of him. You provide him with regular feedback, and then if he's not able to rise to the occasion, you provide him with the necessary supports to rise to the occasion, and you have to get creative with that. And I mean, I think that that's just the route that you have to go. He's an employee, and you treat him like an employee. You provide him with the supports. You maintain data on his on how well he's doing, and you go from there.
Kenya?
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Gross's answer, and I also feel that when we're talking about you know, the consistent leadership, it also applies in those school buildings too. And so I think, you know, how we are able to support you know, our principals and maintaining consistency there. You know, I was disappointed we, you know, we lost some of the, you know, the principals at some of the schools in the 3rd district. And I do think that that caused a lot of upset for both kids and staff and all around. And so, so yes, I think that consistency is important because change is something that requires lots of adjustment. And I think that with every decision that we make, whether it's a discussion about curriculum or policy or new procedures, we have to weigh the cost of that change, because somewhere it's going to be felt. You know, these things that seem easy to do on paper often aren't.
Thank you. Mariah?
First of all, what you need to do is you need to support his vision and communicate that vision, and in creating his vision for student achievement. And you need to keep that vision in the forefront of every decision making that the board makes, so that that he knows that we support him, or we achieve that vision. So he needs to make sure that he knows that someone is, he's making progress towards his vision. So there is a need for support for everybody on the board. And that's about it.
Scott?
Yeah, so, you know, I think that continuity of leadership is important even when we're not in a time of apparent crisis. Your average, or of crisis, your average urban school district has a superintendent for about 2.5 years. I was the lone vote against firing Dr. Bedden a couple of years ago because I was concerned about continuity issues. We had a brand new board. We had to bring in a brand new superintendent. That creates significant transition issues for us. It means that our leadership is not necessarily or our school district doesn't have the direction that we need, but especially in times like these. So in order to support them, I think this relationship with the superintendent has to be rooted in mutual trust and respect. And I'll continue to show respect to the superintendent and try to build trust with him and with those in our school district, our parents and our teachers as well. We don't want to be like the Cleveland Browns, changing our coach every year and expecting good results. And you know, I think that's been an issue that's plagued our school district for too long.
Thanks, Scott. Robin, you had a comment?
Robin had a question. She said, I hear a lot of discussion about parent relationships and community building. How do teachers fit into this relationship building?
Kenny, you want to start with that one?
I think teachers are first.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I ran very much because I, you know, got to know teachers that were involved in advocacy and in that work, and now on the board, I just feel very strongly that that, you know, teachers understand what's happening in the classrooms like no one else. And so, you know, as I'm making decisions and figuring out where I stand on each position, I reach out to teachers to find out, because, you know, that they understand these issues like, you know, like I can't as a parent. And so, you know, I mean, I think in terms of community building, it's all inclusive, and we have some really amazing teachers that I, you know, I'm so thankful for.
Thank you. Sabrina?
Yeah, so I think that this kind of goes part of one of the things I talk about in my platform is I would love to see some incentives for teachers to live in the school district. I think that when you have those teacher next door programs, that brings even more of a sense of community for our kids and for our teachers. We have some really great administrators that do a good job with building communities, and so when you have that top-down leadership doing that, then the teachers absolutely will follow suit because they are the first step to our kids and building those relationships. And I think if we could do something to bring more teachers into the city or have more teachers who live in the city, we would even have that would be even a better opportunity to build those relationships.
Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that relationship building, at least as a board member, a lot of it comes down to helping to empower our teachers and make them feel that their voice is valuable in the school district. And I was really glad that we passed a free speech resolution to make sure that our teachers feel comfortable advocating and reaching out to members of the board and the administration. But we still have a long way to go to build that trust on the building level in many cases, and even with the central office. So I think as a board member, it's been important to me to try to reflect the opinions and to try to advocate for a lot of the positions that our teachers are taking. Because I think that they are on the ground level. They know what's going on in our classroom the most. They know what supports our students need the most, and they're professionals and they know how to get things done. So when I hear overwhelming teacher voice for a certain action, I want to be able to support it, encourage the administration to support it. And I think that's how you can help build community and support for our teachers.
Thank you. Juliana, were there any more comments that have come up?
Yeah.
I think Mariah still needs to speak.
Oh, sorry, Mariah. Didn't mean to skip you.
That's
Go ahead.
okay. I'll make it short and simple. I feel that teachers are the first. I'm a parent and I engage in productive communication with teachers. And in the second district, we have also included teachers to join our civic group. So if they want to join the civic group, they can. Principals, teachers, and Sabrina's idea, we even went after that idea to cut them a rate to even become a home buyer. We wanted them to be a home buyer in our neighborhood. So I believe as far as teachers and community and stakeholders, if we can bond that together, we will ensure that second district have better schools.
Thank you, ma'am. And now we're going to close this off with everybody having a 2-minute closing statement. We'll start with the third district candidates. Sabrina? This will be a 2-minute statement.
So ultimately, I just wanted to say that thank you for having me, and just to bring it back to my platform, like I said, education is my passion, and what I'm looking forward to is serving the third district students, building relationships with parents, and being a true voice for them, and building a trusting relationship with them at that bottom level so that they trust the school division to make good choices for their children. I want to continue to address issues of equity and discipline. I want to continue to assist with addressing issues of wraparound services and community involvement. And like I said, going back to knowing that teachers are important, providing those supports for teachers for mentoring programs, and even incentives for them to live in the city.
Thank you. Kenya?
I've had an amazing 2 and almost 3 years on the board. I've gotten to know, parents and families at all of the schools in the third district and beyond. I've gotten to have a keen understanding about, how our schools work and what our opportunities are. And it's really been incredibly eye-opening. The challenges that our district face are incredible, and there's a lot to be done. I think that I'm really proud of the accomplishments I've made in this time, but really I don't own those accomplishments because it's really been a collaborative effort. I was able to get teacher retention on the strategic plan because I had teachers who came and showed up and spoke and ensured that we got that there. I was able to ensure that the public was aware that our new schools were costing $30 million more than they I believe should have, and I'm thankful to my colleagues in board, including Mr. Barlow, who signed a letter with me and on behalf of that issue. You know, we've seen lots of engagement, and I think that there's lots of opportunity to take our engagement and truly transform our schools.
Thank you so much. Now our second district folks, Mariah.
Yes, my name is Mariah White again, and I stand up for education. And as a parent, been in the school for 12 years and seeing firsthand of the schools in the second district, and also just graduating from with another master's in education, curriculum, instruction, and assessment to apply that to our schools. I am looking also at my platform as equitable resources to provide those resources for special education and ensure that they have inclusive and student-centered. I also want to provide focus and structure with disciplinary actions for our character building for our students. And I want to also look at overcrowded schools and adopt policies and review them and make sure that they are efficient. And continue to engage in my productive communication with the communities, both sides, on both sides of the second district, also with the teachers, other parents, and the community stakeholders, and all the 4 or 5 city groups that we have to ensure that our children receive what is needed and what is deserved in the second district. So I want to include teachers, staff, and all the decision makings that we have for the second district. My website is www.voteformariah.com. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. And thank you very much again for putting this forum together for us. You know, I mentioned earlier, it's been an incredible honor to serve the second district and to be able to advocate for what I believe are the best interests of our students for the past 4 years. But it has come with its challenges. We had to enter a corrective action plan with the state. We had to go through a transition of superintendents. We are now experiencing COVID. We went through the rezoning process. We've done a lot, and we've gone through a lot as a district. And throughout all these issues, you know, I try to vote my conscience, and I try to do the best I can on all of these votes. I don't get them all right, but what I can promise is that I will continue to put a lot of thought and passion into this position moving forward. That I will be, that I want to project stability for our school district, that I want to provide, you know, thoughtful leadership moving forward and effective leadership moving forward for this district. So, and I think in order to do that, especially when we've experienced so many challenges and so much change, that there really is value to having people who know their way around the system, who know the key players in the central office, who've worked with the superintendent, who know which teachers help advocate for key needs. And I'm someone with that knowledge, and I'm someone with that experience. And I'd be honored to continue to advocate for and pay for our staff, to advocate for the resources that we need as a school district, to advocate for improvement to our facilities, and to advocate for innovative programming moving forward, if you'll let me. And I really appreciate this opportunity and would love your support on Election Day. And my website is votebarlow.com. And you can also reach me via cell at 804-616-332.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all 4 of the candidates who are spending this much time with us tonight. I really appreciate it very much. I'd like to thank all of you all who have been in attendance for being here as well. And also like to invite you for 7 o'clock next Wednesday. We'll be having a similar town hall meeting with the candidates for city council for the second and third district.
On Thursday.
Next Thursday, excuse me. You're correct. We'll be sending out another email blast with the Zoom number to sign in for very shortly. Thank you all. I hope you have a nice evening.